Ms. Joanne Emerson.
Because agriculture is our most important industry and largest industry in our district, it is critical that diesel fuel be cost effective, because if there's continued increase because of government intervention by the EPA in the cost of diesel fuel, it's only going to lead to food costing more, and I don't think the American public will stand for that. I will say that during the last 4 years, while Nancy Pelosi has been Speaker of the House and the Democrats have been in charge of the Congress, and my side is 78 people fewer, it has been very frustrating to have to deal with the folks in California who think that, you know, whatever standard they have in California should apply to Missouri. And I actually have a resolution of disapproval not allowing the Environmental Protection Agency to regulate greenhouse gases, just by way of example, so that they can't backdoor in cap and trade, because in January they are in fact going to issue regulations for that. The only way to stop the EPA, quite frankly, is to put a conservative Congress in place.
Mr. Rick Van Dieven.
As a legislator, the first question I would ask is, do we have the right to pollute? And if so, how much? I think these are the questions that all legislatures should be asking themselves before they craft any kind of environmental law. I firmly believe that the free market is going to solve this problem. I mean, there's a lot of emerging clean energy technologies that are out there. They're very exciting. We've got nanotechnology and biofuels and just a whole smorgasbord of solutions. And that's what we need to be focusing on instead of depending on government to solve all of our problems.
Mr. Tommy Sowers.
When I look at this specific example, it just reiterates the issue of energy and how critical it is for our farming communities. I've spent a lot of time on the campaign trail in sale barns and with row crop farmers, and they continue to tell me about the importance of inputs. And as the price of inputs go up, it cuts into the profit margins. To me, my energy policy is simple, and it's one word. It's domestic. I'm against cap and trade, but I am for domestic production. And that means everything's got to be on the table. And that means that we need to have people that look long in Congress. Right now, our biodiesel plant in Dexter is not online because we don't have legislators looking long. Right now, we don't have a cellulose biomass plant online, even though we're the Saudi Arabia of timber. And we can produce that energy right here, and it's clean and it's renewable. But it takes a legislator that has a look past just the immediate 2 years. And what does it take to get reelected? This is my home. I'm looking very long here. And with your vote, I'd be honored to be a long-term looking representative. Thanks.
Our next question deals with international trade and jobs. The ability to support jobs is based on infrastructure such as roads, utilities, and housing. In order to bring in jobs, infrastructure must be in place to support those people filling the jobs. If elected, what are some of the things you can do to help build the infrastructure needed to bring much-needed jobs to the 8th District? Mr. Larry Bill.
I think the first thing we need to do is to stop the government interference, which I mentioned already. It's very difficult to generate local tax revenue if you've got all these regulations and uncertainty coming out of Washington, D.C. On the topic of infrastructure, repair, and corrections, I think we need to make our priorities out there. Whenever you have earmarks, the earmarks should actually go to the 8th District. Mrs. Emerson, as my understanding, has been supporting the Congressional Hunger Center, which is based in Washington, D.C. And over the last 3 years, they have spent $8 million on studying hunger, and all that money was based in Washington, D.C. That $8 million could have been used right back here in the 8th District to supply 4 towns with new sanitary and clean water systems. And I wish that would have been the priority instead of what she did. Thank you.
Mr. Tommy Sowers.
Well, it's clear that we need 21st century infrastructure. In Iraq, I had a better cell phone network and access to the internet than what we have here in much of the 8th Congressional District. And folks, your tax dollars paid for that network halfway around the world. It's one of the reasons why I want to end these wars overseas. I think it's time that we start investing in infrastructure here. So with the $2 billion that we're spending overseas right now every week in Afghanistan, we could reimagine rural America. But on the broader issue of trade, we clearly need to renegotiate these trade deals. Folks, we have lost 150 factories and 16,000 manufacturing jobs. That's 16,000 families. That's people that make things. And we need to make things here in America again. In Congress, I want to lead that charge. I want to make sure that we have members of Congress that put America first so that we can start making things here and quit incentivizing people to move their factories to Mexico and China.
Mr. Rick Van Dieven.
Government's incapable of creating jobs or a robust economy. The single largest contributing factor to our faltering economy is out of control government spending. The entitlements, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, these are all adding up, and I believe that what government needs to do is just get out of the way and allow an environment of a free market to thrive and be created, and to allow people to make decisions for themselves. If elected, I will work on ending these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and ending some of these entitlement programs. As far as free trade goes, I believe that free trade is the right for every citizen of every country to trade with any citizen of any other country. We don't need free trade agreements to engage in free trade. Free trade agreements usually result in some form of protectionism for a favored industry or a moneyed interest. NAFTA prevents the import of Mexican corn, for example. If I'm elected, I would work to overturn free trade agreements like NAFTA and favored nation statuses, and also eliminate some of the 8,000 federal tariffs on imports. Thank you.
Ms. Joanne Emerson.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the question. I do want to address one thing that Larry said. The Congressional Hunger Center is a program that my late husband, Bill Emerson, started, and we have continued it because we do have hunger in America and we need leaders to help eradicate it. And also, to Mr. Sowers, you'll be pleased to know that we actually have 2 biomass plants coming online, one in Perryville and one in Salem, as long as the EPA can keep their hands out of it. But we already have the plans and things are progressing forward. I'm very proud of the work that we've done in infrastructure here in this region because of people here in the community who have been advocating for it and with whom we've been partnering. We have 4-laned Highway 60, we have 4-laned Highway 67. We've worked on investments in helping the industrial park improve its infrastructure as well. I believe strongly in increasing our broadband usage and the infrastructure for it. Patty and Steve Boyers have been working on a great project for that. And I will say that because of the need in rural America for access to health care, we can use telemedicine. People want to stay at home and start businesses, and obviously broadband deployment is an important part of that. And I'm also proud of the fact that we have had increased trade in agriculture. As a matter of fact, our trade exports here in our district have increased by 66%.
Our next question deals with immigration and its impact on industry and agricultural community in Southeast Missouri. Many illegal immigrants have been arrested in Southeast Missouri over the last 2 years. Unless those illegal immigrants were known felons, they were released without being deported due to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, unwillingness to take action? What adjustments can be made to federal immigration policy to increase its enforcement for the sake of jobs for citizens of Southeast Missouri? We'll begin with Tommy Sowers.
Well, I do want to go back just real quick and address the issue of the biomass plants. I've spoken with the leaders trying to put in the biomass plant in Perryville and in Dent County. But I was born and raised here. I'm part of the show me tradition here. And this is just another example of talking versus walking. In 14 years, Congresswoman Emerson has passed a total of 4 bills, not a single bill on agricultural policy, written and passed: a courthouse, a post office, a coin, and a scholarship. On the issue of immigration, very simply, is we've got to secure our border. That's the central thing that we have to do. And you cannot tell me that we can put a man on the moon 50 years ago and we can't secure a border today. Our resources are tied up overseas right now, and that's part of the problem. And that's one of the reasons why, being a Green Beret in Congress, I'm going to be able to make some sense out of all these investments and all these tax dollars that are going overseas. But then the second thing that needs to happen is workplace enforcement with teeth. If we don't have good workforce enforcement, we will continue to have the same problem. We put that with teeth, and in the last 2 years, 2 million illegal immigrants went home. It's because they couldn't find work, and that's...
Mr. Rick Van Dieven.
Illegal immigration is another one of those political hot-button issues that Congress just doesn't seem to want to fix. Let me be clear. I believe in the free movement of peaceful people across borders. I can identify with immigrants. They're doing the same things that my ancestors did, which is leaving terrible conditions in their homelands for a better opportunity here in the United States. It would be impossible to locate, detain, and deport 12 to 20 million people that don't want to be found. Erecting an expensive and ineffective wall on the southern border, or to increase raids on employers. A dynamic economy demands immigrant labor. Agriculture, in particular, demands unskilled immigrant labor. The statement that immigrants steal jobs is a fallacy. The level of jobs in a country is never constant. If elected, I will increase the amount of work visas that are issued to participants in the underground economy. Our immigration laws are antiquated. They don't reflect how people truly live their lives, and they should be constructed with our long-term economic goals in mind. Thank you.
Ms. Joanne Emerson.
I'm very, very proud of a bill that I actually wrote and is law now that opened up trade with Cuba, thanks to a meeting I had with Sonny Martin many, many years ago. And we have actually sold over $2 billion worth of product to Cuba. That's law, Tommy. And I'm also proud of my bill allowing reimportation of prescription drugs. It's law. Bill Clinton signed it. I'm very proud of that, Tommy. Now, let me address immigration. Number one, the leader of Mr. Sowers' party, Nancy Pelosi, wants nothing more than to use agriculture as an amnesty program. She is trying very hard to have comprehensive immigration because of agricultural workers. Well, I say, number one, that we don't give amnesty to anyone. Number two, that we have border enforcement first, that we have worker verification, that we pass my bill that's sitting out there now, can't do it with Nancy Pelosi, we'll have to start again next year, that actually forces employers to say whether or not they've knowingly hired a person that's here illegally, and if so, then they are going to be put in jail for a felony offense. And that's the strongest. We have no laws like that now, and we need to be sure that